Hi, it's Ziggy. Me with Chris. How you going, Chris?
Was that really an intro? What about g'day, it's ZiggyD?
Thought I'd throw a bit of a wrench in.
Hey guys, Ziggy.
Hi. Alright. G'day guys, ZiggyD here, and I'm here with Chris.
Hey, good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. So I got to do this trip to New Zealand, but I thought I'd bring everyone else with me. So all the Pee-wee streamers are giving us a question. I'm going to be asking a question to Chris, and I'm going to hand over to them.
It's going to be horrifying.
Yeah, it should be interesting. There's some mixed questions in there.
We'll see how this goes.
Okay, all right.
This is impromptu.
Let's do it.
Hey guys, it's Mathel, and my question is, how often, if ever, would you implement ideas or suggestions into the game that came from the community via forums, Reddit, or otherwise? If never, is it because the ideas that you see aren't quite good enough for what you're trying to do, or are you really trying to keep the creation of the game strictly within the company and your own ideas?
So historically, we look at a lot of ideas people send in. I receive suggestion emails on a daily basis and forward them to the right team members. So I believe we do currently take advice from community members and ideas, but I can't think of a case when actually thinking about this where we've taken an idea as is and used it. And that's partly because ideas represent a great summarization of a problem that someone is having. But the solution that they find may not be the same solution that we find, especially when taking into account various types of abuse and so on in the game that they may not be able to predict. So I'd like to say that we use community ideas as much as we can, but our team is large now. We have over 92 people, and they all have their own ideas about how the game can be improved. And because they see the big picture, they've got access to the stats, they understand all the reasons we do stuff, their solutions are generally more appropriate than some of the ones the community suggests. Having said that, keep the ideas coming because it's a great source of inspiration and a good way of seeing problems that people are having, even if we don't use a solution as is.
What's up? So my question is pretty simple. Are there any plans or hopes to introduce new weapon types to Path of Exile? Something along the lines of javelins or crossbows, just something to give players a new way to experience the game.
So weapon types, they're kind of the hallmark of the action RPG expansion. You could imagine 3.0 coming out next year with new weapon types. Well, currently there aren't any planned for 3.0, and part of the reason for this is that we've been experimenting and haven't found any ones that actually work well yet. But that doesn't mean we're not going to do more in the future, it's just that we're quick to kill experiments which don't work out. And an example is spears, for example. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do with spears, and in a game like Diablo 2 they worked incredibly well. But the subtle difference is spears are really long, like they work by being able to poke someone who's far away. In a 2D game, that's okay, because you're either drawing the spear behind or in front of the enemy when you're walking near them. But in a 3D game, you get intersection with everything. We have intersection with walls, intersection with trees, intersections with other players. You can't walk around town with a spear. There are lots of problems like that. So that one's written off until we can solve that. We've had crazy other ideas. I mean, obviously crossbows have been considered, and we haven't found exactly the right way to do these yet. A lot of people want pistol crossbows, where you can run around with one in each hand, like in Diablo 3. This isn't quite how we view crossbows ourselves. They're a much slower weapon, and introducing a weapon that's intentionally slow definitely has to have some big advantages in order to make it worthwhile. So I try to be pretty candid with new weapon types in the future, but for the time being we don't have any lined up. When we find a cool one, we'll make it though.
Hey guys, so I was wondering, how do you guys feel about the XP differences in tier 15s and 16s compared to spam running like really good layouts tier 10s, 11s, and 12s, which is pretty meta right now, especially while pushing level 100. And the other thing would be about rolling maps, so things like elemental weakness, temp chains, and stuff like that. Obviously, pushing pack size mods on maps gives you a lot bigger like returns. You get more maps, more items. It's generally the go-to rolls, and they also don't make the map harder. Something I would really like to see would be added fire, crit, stuff like that, giving something like an XP boost, like say 2.5 or 5% per like hard damage mod rolled. And I think we'd see a more interesting push for level 100 than with more players dying instead of rolling very safe maps. And I was wondering how you guys felt about that.
That's a great question. So it's a tricky thing with maps because intuitively you expect that the highest, hardest content is going to give the most experience and therefore allow you to get 100 most quickly. We like the fact that people can drop down a few tiers and run easier maps, especially if you're pushing for 100. This is a very long task and deaths cost you quite a lot, especially if you're playing in hardcore. So we're okay if people are playing 11 and 12 maps rolled in just the way they want. There are a lot of people that we know of who are playing in harder maps in order to get to 100, and that suits them well. Statistically, statistically, this league, we've actually been really pleased with the number of people that are running Guardian and Shaper content and getting good experience from it. So it's worked out really well, and we like the fact there's a variety. I feel that the inverse question of when is there going to be more variety, everyone's just having to play Shaper to get to 100, will be a much worse situation. So I'm glad that we're not in that case. With regard to map mods, it's interesting because today, this is after you ask the question, but before the future when you see this answer, it's Tuesday before Breach at the moment, we just posted a big pile of new map mod changes in the news. So by the time you see this answer, you'll probably have seen the changes, but yes, the team were aware that there are big improvements that can be made to map mods, especially for interest and variety, if not for balance's sake itself. There are mods that you never want to run, so they've been removed. There are mods that are too good and they've been changed. There are mods that were bad and have been raised up a bit. So this is a case where the team are very aware of the concerns with map mod balance and working actively to change them. In addition, map mods are one of those balance things that isn't off limit for changing during the middle of the league. You know, while we don't want to completely trample on people's passive trees, it's totally fine for us to go and tweak the map mods a bit to improve the situation. So if there are still problems, expect more solutions.
Jack of all trades, master of none. Due to nature of this concept, Scion is hard to balance and has led to a situation where everyone plays her if the choices are too good, or by no one if they are too weak. And I think the past is a pretty good example of this. So, are you balancing her this concept in mind? And if so, what's your plans to do that? Or are you willing to scrap that completely and maybe give Scion her own Ascendancy classes?
This is a very good question, and I was actually talking to the team about Scion Balance earlier this morning. Now I want to come out and explain, at no stage here are we giving the Scion her own set of Ascendancy classes. And the reason for that is that the Scion is about the generic wildcard character. She's the one who you play when you don't really have a particular build that fits into another class. So when we were designing Ascendancy classes, we started off by saying, okay, like every other class, what are the 3 Ascendancy classes for the Scion? And so we came up with some like radical animate weapon build for the first one, and we were working on the other 2 when we realized, wait, if we lock this in early 2000 or late 2015, early 2016 for Ascendancy, then what do people do if they want to play something else as the Scion, right? Here we're locking in 3 meta builds for this current league. Those builds don't even work at the moment in November. So it's a matter of acknowledging the fact that the Scion is not going to have 3 predefined roles that ZiggyD says these are the ways you play the class. It's going to be a wildcard. It's going to have tons of crazy stuff from other classes. Now, the balance team want to improve the Scion. Exactly as you said, it's either something that everyone plays or no one plays. And right now it's in a stage where it's less popular. I mean, some people are playing the Scion and having a great time, and it's okay with us if certain classes are more or less popular in different leagues. Totally fine. For there to be good choices, there have to be bad choices. But currently the team's opinion is that the Scion needs some buffs in terms of her Ascendancy classes. They were actually hoping to have a discussion about that yesterday afternoon. I don't know what would have been discussed, and I don't know what's going to be discussed necessarily before 250 comes out. They've indicated they'd like to include some changes if there's time, but it's also something where they're not afraid of potentially buffing the Scion Ascendancy options during the league, providing a bit more extra options for people to play, or maybe it comes out in the next league. So I don't have a time frame for you, but yes, your point is spot on regarding how the class is balanced. There won't be Ascendancies for her other than the way it's currently set up, but there probably will be numerical improvements to those skills.
Hey guys, happy holidays. My first question to you is, where do you see ZiggyD being in 5 years? Would you potentially be interested in making a new game? Or where do you just see yourself in 5 years?
That's part 1 of Lifting's question.
All right, so 5 years' time. Well, 5 years ago, that would have been 2011, so we were just entering the closed beta of Path of Exile, and it was exciting because that was the first time that players were actually getting in the game, were getting feedback, and it's been a very fast 5 years since then. I mean, I can remember that day vividly. 5 years from now, there'll be a lot more Path of Exile happening. I mean, we're working on some very cool stuff for the future. We have multiple expansions in play. We have a schedule of things. There's exciting stuff. We keep talking about 10 acts, which might have been a mistake to say, but we'll do it. There's stuff happening, and it's going to be awesome. So 5 years from now, technically we'll still have a lease on this building, so it'll probably just say 15 years up here rather than 10, and I'll be answering the same questions, just looking a bit older and hopefully a bit thinner.
Second question, and probably more importantly, is this is very character defining, so answer truthfully. What would you rather, have your penis the size and shape as your nipples, or your nipples the size and shape of your penis?
Why did they do this to me? I'm going to go with the second option.
Okay.
I can wear a jacket like this. It's fine.
Character defined.
Character defined. Well, I'm in a category now, and this is on the internet, so that's not going away. Thanks, Ziggy. Appreciate that one.
I didn't do these questions. I just have to give them to you.
You just wanted to show me that one beforehand.
I wanted the reaction to be authentic. Okay. But I didn't make the question.
Thanks, Lifting.